What's up, Browns fans? Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin with you, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Is a trade looming involving Myles Garrett? What is going on with Ty Simpson? And what are our dream draft scenarios? We'll walk through all those things and more coming up on the latest episode of our Browns Roundtable podcast. Make sure you head on over to brownsroundtable.com. Use that QR code up there near Anthony Meglin's head there. And you can scan it, get over there, sign up, become part of the community space, read our work. And I do have a story up from the Wednesday night about the details of the Myles Garrett changes to his contract and what it all means. So make sure you check that out. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, it's your chance to find more content like this. We'll have press conferences for you. I'll be in Phoenix for the owners' meetings next week. So we'll have you covered there as well. We appreciate all of you who support the site and the network. So, Megs, without further ado, though, we have to talk about the news that came down later in the evening on Wednesday. And it felt pretty innocuous at the time because it really wasn't anything crazy groundbreaking. This wasn't like something that the Browns created a bunch of cap space or whatever, but it's kind of like what it potentially sets the stage for that has people talking. And yes, we are talking about the Myles Garrett contract situation and how the Browns reworked some aspects of his deal. I don't want to put the burden on you to explain everything. So I'll real quickly, as fast as I can, kind of walk through the details here, and then we can riff about what we kind of think it means. But essentially, Myles Garrett in his contract had option bonuses due in 2026, 2027, 2028 that would have taken effect on the 15 days into the new league year of each of those years. So Wednesday was the deadline for the first one to take effect for the 2026 option bonus. And the Browns, before that hit, moved it so that those 3 years of bonuses don't actually go onto the cap or accelerate or become money they pay to him until 7 days before the next season starts. So that's a really far shift in terms of where that money is going to actually now be owed to him and where it would count against the Browns if they were to, trade him. And so that's the piece that got everybody got everybody's attention, because all of a sudden a contract that would have had a mammoth of a cap hit, I think upwards of like $70 million as of Wednesday initially, if you were to try to trade him, now all of a sudden is a cap hit of like $40 million up until 7 days before the new league year begins, or not the 7 days before the season begins. And now that contract is a lot more movable than it was, less than 24 hours ago. And so that's very interesting because we know the history with Myles Garrett. We know the trade request from a year ago. We know that it got kind of tense at times, and they had to kind of work through it. And then Myles got paid. And so this kind of sets the stage now where everybody's wondering if this now means Myles is destined to get traded this summer. I am curious your thoughts on that, Megs.
And it's on the heels too, Germ, of the Browns' new rule proposal for the 5 years of draft picks that are now that hopefully, if it's passed at the league meetings here this upcoming weekend, that can come into effect. And then there's your trade capital for the guy that you just moved all that cap space around for. I mean, the writing's on the wall, unfortunately, and it really just sucks. The reality of it sucks for Browns fans, but it's like, all right, we just had a guy last year set the sack record, 25 and a half sacks on a season where his team won 5 games. The game that he had 5 individual sacks in, the Browns lost by 30. So it's like, all right, very clearly they're wasting one of the greatest players, one of the greatest defensive players, one of the greatest pass rushers of all time. They signed him to that mammoth contract last year, and now they make the move, to adjust it. And dude, when it carried him across, the initial thought was, oh, that's menial, that's innocuous. And it's like, for me, my antenna went right up. Once I saw it come across, it was like Browns restructure Myles Garrett's contract. I was like, oh no, that's not good, because it was so random. It's such a small move, but it makes so much like now everything makes so much sense, and you're like, yep, everything is pointing towards him getting moved at some point.
Well, so I want to talk about this more because I like restructures happen, right? But the thing that was the kicker with this was there was no money saved in this upcoming league year by doing this. It was strictly, it essentially just gave the Browns more flexibility with each year leading into the season to sit down and decide, like, is Myles still part of our plan? Which is kind of interesting because last year they made it pretty clear he was definitely part of their plan. And that's the thing for me. And I do want to get back to the rule change you mentioned as well. Because I actually think I think that's more of a coincidence that these things are kind of happening at the same time, but I'll explain in a second. But I just find it hard to believe. Like, I don't think this means Myles is getting moved, in the near future. Maybe it means 2027. Maybe it means 2028. But I have a hard time believing that Andrew Berry stood up there and listen, I get it. Like, these guys lie all the time, and he talked up Travis Hunter last year so that he could trade the second pick and get somebody to come up and get him. Like, I get it, but the Cleveland to Canton thing, that felt legitimate. Like, him saying that and him making it clear, we expect Myles to be here. We want to see him finish his career here, like that. And I understand Barry, he has to know he might not even necessarily be here for the end of Myles' career, depending on how things go. So I get you have to kind of live in that world. And maybe that's the point of this, is like, not that he's doing anything for the next GM, but maybe it sets up for whoever's going to be leading this organization in 4 years or whatever, that if you want to get out from the Myles thing, you can. But, it's, I don't, so because of that, I don't think that it just like changed their opinions. And I don't think they're going to trade Myles like right now. Certainly not before June 1st. If they were going to move him, it has to be after June 1st. You can split that money between 2 seasons, between the 2 years. But I still don't even think after that it's going to happen. Like, this kind of just feels like they're setting themselves up to ask the question every year, which, hey, that's from a PR standpoint, like, you're asking for a lot of questions to be asked every offseason about Myles' future and all these different things. So you're kind of welcoming that into your building. But at the same time, I don't know that this means he's getting traded now, but it certainly makes it feel like it's more of a possibility in this offseason and every subsequent offseason that's coming.
And I also wonder too, like the reports that came out, a couple weeks ago, that Myles hasn't been able to be contacted by the team since the Todd Monken hire and all that stuff.
And I'll say, for what it's worth, I was told that was nonsense, but whatever.
And it's like it's one of those things, Jerm, where you like start to look at this like, oh, this happened here, and like this happened here, and then they move some money, and then they're like this, and then it's like, oh, then it's going to all come together with him being moved. But like you said, I agree. I was talking with a buddy of mine today, and I was like, I don't think it'll be this offseason, because you've banged this drum pretty hard and pretty significantly. And I think it's one of the better points that you've made on our time doing our show here. But like, if you're Andrew Berry and your resume is worst quarterback contract in the history of the world and trading the best player a franchise has ever seen, like, I don't know. That's not all that good. Like, that's not, that ain't, you're not writing home to mom about that accomplishment. Like, he doesn't want that on his resume. At least he shouldn't at all.
Yeah. I mean, Myles is either 1A, he's either 1A or 1B, I guess, depending on how you feel about Jim Brown. But like, I think that's always been the point I go back to, is he already has to wear for the rest of his career making the worst trade in NFL history, because this is going to go down as the worst trade in NFL history, unless somehow, some way, which some people seem to think could happen, Deshaun like revives his career this year. And do you want to now also be known as like the guy that traded Myles Garrett? And we also got to think too, like, there's a stadium that they're building. They're trying to get people to be invested in the team by 2029. Like, somebody like Myles sells tickets. He's a great player. He just broke the single season sack record last year. Like, I think all those things are kind of in at least the back of their minds as they think about this stuff. So again, it was weird. It was weird to see this happen. It certainly is interesting that they now give themselves this flexibility to at least ponder. And Myles does have a no trade clause, so we'd have to agree to any trade, but they can at least like go there every offseason and talk about it or question it or decide, is this the time we pull the trigger to trade him and get all these draft picks that we could get potentially, depending on how long he's still playing at this level. But I don't. To me, I don't think this means something's imminent, and even post June 1 this year, that something's going to happen. I also just think, what does that do if this is all just to trade Myles Garrett in June, and you have a first year head coach who's coming in and kind of like you get this new staff, and it's like the one thing they could depend on was, well, hey, our defense is really good. Let's just focus on the offense and kind of get this thing righted. And now you're like throwing a wrench in of, hey, we traded our best player. I don't know. I get the reasons why it does add up because of the changes in the contract, but I also feel like there's plenty of reasons why it doesn't make sense for them to do this right now. And we'll see what it looks like in 2027. But I don't expect something in 2026 as far as a Myles trade goes. But that's just
me. And no, I absolutely buy that. The one thing to play just a little bit of devil's advocate is if you do get 4 first-round picks back, I mean, you have 2 first-rounders for the next 4 years or 3 years. Like, man, you can do a lot with that. You can do a lot with that. You would assume that it would be going to a team like the Patriots or the Broncos or the Rams or the Seahawks or whatever. That the Rams actually would be the one, right? They don't like their draft picks anyway, and they would just say, "Screw it, here, take all of them. Just take them all. give us Myles Garrett so we can stop Sam Darnold." What a sentence that is. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's very fascinating. It didn't happen on accident. That's what keeps coming to my head. This move didn't happen by chance.
And I'm glad you brought the pick thing again. First of all, that proposal the Browns made, I don't think it's going to get approved next week because I think the owners, the rest of the owners, are going to feel like it's too radical. I think they're going to say this is ridiculous, and why would I almost think it's going to be like a protect us from ourselves type thing. Where it's like we shouldn't be allowed to trade more than 3 picks into the future because too many people will screw this up or whatever. But I also have been pretty clear about that. To me, that rule change is not about, hey, we're the Browns. What can we get from Myles Garrett? Can we get 5 first-round picks? To me, and honestly, it's not even about the one that everyone was really going with, the joking one of, oh, this is just so the Browns can trade 5 picks in the future and really screw things up for themselves because they would do something stupid like that. It's not about that either. What this is about, when you read the proposal and you kind of get down to like when you weed through the low-hanging fruit jokes that were made, what this is really about is A, driving more trade action, which who says no to that if you're a fan of the NFL?
Yeah.
And B, it's honestly kind of like a lesson learned from the Deshaun trade, I guess. I mean, not that the other owners are going to do the Browns a favor and like be like, well, we're glad you learned that, so now we'll reward you. But if you think back to that trade, maybe Andrew Berry would have played it differently, and if he could trade 3 of the next 5 picks, first round picks, instead of the 3 in consecutive order first round picks, maybe he would have been able to keep like, hey, we'll trade 2022 and 2024 and 2026, and we'll still have 2023 and 2025 in there where we can add to the roster and do these different things. It's the same sort of thought process with like how the NBA operates. You can trade picks further down the line. You can't trade back-to-back picks in the NBA because of the stepping rule, but it's similar. And so I think that's kind of the thought process on it, more so than just, hey, can we get 5 firsts for Myles Garrett? So I think it's just kind of a coincidence that these things are happening at the same time, but I do understand why people are connecting those dots.
For what it's worth, Jerm, that was a really good explanation of it because I think that like not even kidding you, like you should clip that and post it because that is that's like a really well said explanation of the truth of that rule because everyone's minds, we all see one thing on Twitter and it's like that's the truth now. That's what I believe. All of Brown's world is like they're trying to get 5 for Myles Garrett, But the way you explained it,
and everybody outside of Brown's world is just like, the Browns shouldn't be allowed to trade 5 firsts. Like they'd be the team that would take advantage of that and then ruin their franchise. So I get it. The Browns have been screwing things up with trades for years, but I'm giving them the leeway of like at least understanding where they're coming from with this proposal at the very least, I guess.
Yeah, that's that's good work. That is good work by you. Do you think there's anything of substance going to happen at the owners' meetings? I know you're going to be out there. I know they're not going to talk about the tush push. This is kind of like this conversation, the draft pick conversation is kind of like the big one going into those owners' meetings.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be a bigger one that's talked about. I honestly though think there was a gameplay rule proposal in relation to the potential lockout from the officials. And I think that's going to be a big topic of conversation is what's going to happen if the league has to go with replacement refs and they can't come to an agreement with the officiating union or whatever it is, because and one of those the rule that was being proposed was that for at least like if there's replacement refs, basically some team, I forget what team did it, a team proposed basically allowing like most of the calls to go to, or like calls that could decide a game to go to New York and let New York, like the NFL's people basically decide, like, is it the right call or the wrong call? Because they don't want a situation like the Packers and Seahawks the last time there was replacement refs were like that decided the game. So it's like, it's only if there's replacement refs, but they're kind of like setting the foundation for, we might not have the real officials out there. What are we going to do? So I think that's going to be a massive type of conversation from an NFL standpoint.
Do you remember because I do our Packers roundtable, and this actual conversation came up. We were talking about the Fail Mary is what they called it. But like, do you remember how much of a disaster those replacement refs were? Like, do you remember that?
It was so bad. It was so bad.
We went down like a rabbit hole over on Packers Roundtable, and like we were looking at some of the actual refs. They were like high school refs, like accountants, teachers, and then they're on like the NFL field, like calling holding calls on like Trent Williams. You're like, what is going on here?
Honestly, the actual officials probably like when they have to use replacement refs. Like that is the ultimate sign of leverage, right? Like for as much as people gripe about the officiating on social media, and people like think they all suck, get some replacement refs out there in 2026 and let's see how well these games get called. And then
here's the rule.
Sudden,
hey,
it's the classic like you don't know what you got till it's gone. That's exactly what it is.
Take this rule, and if they ask for media rule suggestions, take this one. Go through Twitter, and everyone who says something bad about a ref, they're the ones selected when the refs lock out. So you get bozos and idiots like me on the field, like, I don't know, holding, like, like.
I mean, at least you played football. At least you played.
Yeah,
football.
I know. I would be good.
There's some people who just like love football, watch on their couch, and they're like out here calling stuff that's not.
Yeah, I mean, and these NFL refs are blind and dumb and deaf anyway, so it's like anything would be an upgrade. But no, all joking aside, that'll be fascinating.
I think we don't need to belabor the point on the rest, but like I think that the officials should be able to get things more right than they do when you have replay sort of backing you up. But I also understand it's a very hard job, and there's a lot that's bang bang, and like the speed of the game nowadays is so fast. Like sometimes things just get missed, and it's part of the sport. But in an ideal world, like the point of replay is you're getting things right most of the time. So we'll see if Roger Goodell says anything about that. But anyway, we wanted to get into the Ty Simpson stuff because man, oh man, was there a S storm created from one Dan Orlovsky on ESPN for his commentary on Ty Simpson. And this honestly, like it's a Browns adjacent topic because the Browns have been linked to Ty Simpson to a degree. And, I don't know how you feel about what's been said about that. I feel like there's probably some realness to it because Todd Monken has a relationship with Ty Simpson because he recruited him. He has a relationship with his father as well. I don't think they also had him in for a top 30 visit. So I don't think this is just like jerking Ty Simpson around and being like, yeah, we're not really interested in you. But I also think it's probably like at the right place we would take you. But I don't think they're going to reach either. And I think that's the approach that they should take to somebody like Ty Simpson. But, I thought it was interesting that you had Dan Orlovsky trying to sort of build up Ty Simpson because there are some people who think that he could be in play for the Browns at 6. I don't think that's going to happen. But what did you make of sort of everything that's being said about Ty Simpson and the Browns' interest in him?
So, all right. There's layers to this. So you I think you make the right point. Like if he's available at the right spot, the Browns, in my opinion, you.
What's the right spot for you, by the way?
5th round.
Damn.
Yeah, like he's not good. Like you see these guys, and like I was
gonna say the third. I was gonna say like the 3rd round. I'd be like, okay, I get it, but
5th round's probably a little bit of a joke. But like like late. Like if they pick him at 21,
actually, real quick, here's a follow.
Pick him at 21. I'm done. I'm done with everything.
Here's a I do want to hear more of what you had to say. So I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but is there a quarterback you like more than Ty Simpson that you would be willing to take before Ty Simpson, other than Fernando? I know I'm assuming Fernando you'd be okay with, but beyond him, is there somebody you would actually put as like your quarterback too?
No.
So you think like fifth round is where the rest of these guys kind of should fall?
Yeah, like I think if you get Drew Aller in the fourth, you get Ty Simpson in the fourth, you can get, I think that's where those guys, start to go. Like that, to me, that's where I would start to take them. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I think that there's maybe other teams out there. I'm talking about the Los Angeles Rams that may be thinking about it differently. Maybe San Francisco thinks of it a little bit differently if they want to get rid of Mac Jones and get a cheaper backup in. Like there's some other teams. I think if you're the Cleveland Browns, you look at this and you're like, all right, how much different is one of these rookies from Shedeur Sanders? Like, and if you're going to pick one of them and give them an evaluation year, why waste the time and all the resources and all the stuff when you could just give Shedeur another year? And if he fails again, you just throw him out and now you have 7. That's the other part too. Next year's draft class with quarterbacks is going to be freaking loaded. There's like 6 or 7
of them
that are going to be coming out. We think, but like you think that like that was going to be pretty loaded. So you're like, all right, I wouldn't touch one with the. I will say this, even though that like there are, there is going to be a right fit for him. I thought it was awesome, the conversation that Orlovsky and Pat McAfee had, because what Orlovsky was saying, I tend to agree with a lot of what Dan was saying about Ty Simpson. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard when he goes, what big games? And he had that and again, I like Dan. I like a lot of his stuff. He had that smug look on his face and he was like, what big games? And then he did this. What do you mean? What the hell are you talking about? And then he used the Ohio State game as he only had 6 points going into the third quarter. And I was like, and then he scored 10 points and led 2 scoring drives. And it was like, what are you even talking about? Like that's quite literally exactly. That's an NFL game where it's like, it's not going well, not going well, not going well.
The Ohio State defense was awesome.
Oh, yeah. And Ohio State's defense is great. But then it's like, hey, it's not going well. And then, hey, it's winning time. Boom, I do what I need to do to get my team to win. Like, that's perfect. And then he just freaking dominates Alabama, kills everybody, kills Oregon, wins the national championship. And you're like, what the hell are you talking? And then Pat just kind of stuffing him in a locker was awesome. Like, he was that was good TV.
But I mean, it was sports debate at its finest. It
wasn't even a debate. It was like Pat was like, dude, this is why people think you're getting paid by
and I think to just talk about Orlovsky for a second, where I think he went wrong was trying to one up Fernando Mendoza, right? He should have just left it at, I like Ty Simpson, here's the reasons why, and he'd be my quarterback 1 if I was a GM.
Period.
I think that's it. And so the reason he gets, laughed at and said, and people say he's, shilling for, the clicks or, just trying to talk. I think there was somebody said who he's represented by the same company that Ty Simpson's represented by. So he's trying to, shill for the company or whatever. He's a company man. But the reason he got called that and those things were said about him is because it felt like, he took it so far to the extreme of what big games did Fernando Mendoza play in? It was like he was disparaging Fernando Mendoza to then build up Ty Simpson. And he could have just said, I like Ty Simpson better. That would have probably been the better way to handle it. But yeah, I'm fascinated by this though, because, along with what Dan Orlovsky said, you had Adam Schefter on the McAfee show this week saying that he is comfortable at this point saying that he believes Ty Simpson is going to be a first round pick. And so that's where the Browns absolutely come into focus, because it's well, they got 2 first rounders. So even if they don't want to take him at 6,
dude,
they could wait and try to take him at 24. Again, my thought on it is this. I don't there's some signs with Ty Simpson. There's some throws he makes and you're like, oh, and there was a stretch during the season where he felt like he was turning that corner. We now know he was a little bit injured, so that probably played a role in things. Okay. But the 15 starts is where I get weary, because we see so many quarterbacks that don't have enough starts that make it to the NFL and they flame out. Mitch Trubisky is a classic example, local kid. And that scares me. I don't know that I'm using a first round pick and a quarterback that only has 15 college starts. And so for me, it's like, when you're, you know me, I subscribe very much to the idea that, like, if you don't have a quarterback, you should always be open to the possibilities. And so understanding that, I'm open to the possibility of Ty Simpson, but I just don't think it can be with a first round pick, and there's not a lot of quarterbacks, by the way, that get taken in the second round either over the course of like the last however many years. So I don't even know if a second round pick makes sense, but like if it's the third round or beyond and you're like, we're taking a flyer kind of at this point, like let's give it a shot and see if we can find our franchise quarterback. I get it. But unless the Browns really think he's the guy, and I don't think he's the guy, I think you gotta be sort of wary of drafting him in the first round, but there's talk that he's going to go. But I'm also curious, Megs, like if this becomes, I don't want to say it's like a Shador thing, because I think Shador, there was different reasons why he slipped, but where like the grading of what we thought the grading was on him maybe wasn't as high initially, and then like how far does he actually slide? I think Ty Simpson probably doesn't fall any later than day 2, but I could see a lot of like the fanfare around him right now just becoming that, and he ends up not actually being a first round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think from specifically the Browns' perspective, like if they go with him at 24, man, I will be bummed out because this roster's got too many needs, right? And we'll get into it here in just a moment, but like it's got too many needs. Like if you go and keep taking swings at quarterback and not like premier swings, right? I think that, if you go up and, they make a trade and Fernando Mendoza, let's say the Raiders don't pick Mendoza, they take Arvell Reese, and then, let's say the Jets forget to submit their ticket and miss their pick. Like, then you're like, all right, do we trade up to go get him? And like, go get a guy, right? Like, that would be one thing. But like, I think falling back and taking a guy right at basically a second round pick at 24, that doesn't like fire me up, that doesn't like get me excited, but that also is a big investment. It's a huge investment. And like, you still didn't get either your wide receiver or your tackle, and then he's going to still be fighting an uphill battle. And it's like, man, how many times like this roster's too broken on the offensive side to be like, ooh, maybe this injury-prone, not good completion percentage quarterback is going to save us. Like, I don't know. That's I guess that's just me.
Well, and to be fair, if they take him in the first round, that tells us a lot about how they feel about him and how they feel about the quarterback group. Like, because if you take a guy in the first round, you're basically saying we expect him to start pretty quickly. And I've been pretty adamant. Like, I think Ty Simpson benefits better from going somewhere. I mean, I guess it's situational, right? Like, because I do think the place that actually makes the most sense is the Rams. And if they use a first round pick on him, people would understand it because he, it's like, hey, we got our quarterback for the future. He gets to sit behind Matt Stafford at least for a year, and then we can kind of worry about it. But if he gets drafted to Cleveland,
that Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers situation.
But if he gets drafted to Cleveland in the first round, it's like he's going to be expected to play sooner rather than later. What does that mean for like how that tells us a lot about how they feel about the current state of things. So I think it's Ty Simpson makes sense to me at the right value, the right round, and for me, I think that probably starts in the third. But it sounds like momentum is building towards him being a first rounder. The thing we have to sort of sift through is that smoke, is that bluster, is that real? And I guess, we're going to hear it's kind of crazy. We're still a month away because I feel like I've already reached like my exhaustion point with like some of this nonsense, but we'll see.
I'm getting excited for it, man. It is a month away.
I mean, I'm excited, but it's still a month away. It's like we're already at the point of just like Ty Simpson better than Fernando Mendoza. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing here?
1 month from right now, we're going to be talking draft. We're going to be talking day 3 draft is what we're going to be doing. But
everybody loves day 3 draft.
Hell yeah, we're locked in on that.
Oh man. Well, speaking of the draft, Megs and I we're going to have some fun here towards the end of the show. And this was an idea you had, Megs, and I actually liked it a lot. So in lieu of talking about Ty Simpson not being part of the equation early for the Browns, I think we should throw out like what our dream draft scenario is. And I'm not saying like, I don't need a 7-round mock like we did last week. We'll do that leading up to the draft again. We'll do another one, but like, I don't know, first 3 picks, like who are the guys that if they end up with in the first 3 picks that they have, the 2 first rounders in the second round, if you want to go to the third round, fine. Like that you'd be ecstatic about, okay, I feel good about this team. I feel good about the guys they got. I'm all in. And like, I mean, I know it doesn't take a lot for you to get excited about the Browns, but what would that look like for you in terms of your dream draft scenario?
Hey. All right. So dream draft scenario. I only need 2 picks. This scenario came together. I was just doing some mocks the other day. I was doing some writing and did a couple mocks, and this one came up a couple times. For me, I've watched Carnell Tate all year, as many Ohio State fans have. I am very much so, and I will hear every argument against it and say, hey, this wide receiver class is so deep, and the tackles aren't as deep.
Yeah.
You want to go get your guy at 6. I can hear that argument, but I would be very, very, very weary to let Carnell Tate pass if he's available to you at pick number 6. I think he's very good. I saw him in person 14 times last year and thought several times that when he's on that football field standing next to Jeremiah Smith and those two are catching footballs, there's a lot of times last season where you weren't sure which one was better because they were both that damn good. And so that's a pretty good case to be made. However, from this draft perspective, I had Cleveland taking Carnell Tate at number 6, and then Monroe Freeling, the tackle from Georgia. I don't think he would drop this far, but him getting into the teens, okay? There's one trade partner, I think, that's in the teens that I think Cleveland could go get, and they would want to, if they wanted to move up, they would have to get ahead of the Detroit Lions, who Detroit is going to be drafting tackle. They let Taylor Decker go.
Yeah,
They're going to be taking tackle in the first round. The New York Jets pick 16. The Detroit Lions pick number 17. You could move up to 16 with the Jets, who are trying to stockpile picks. And if Monroe Freeling is there, if any of the other tackles are there, the tackle that you want is there. For me, it's Freeling. I got Tate at 6, Freeling at 16. I traded our 24th pick and our 3rd round pick. And I did dances in my living room because I was like, if this comes true, I think a lot of Browns fans can get excited about it. If that is the scenario they take, that is very risky because the tackles it's not deep. This tackle class is not deep. I think Freeling's one of the better ones there. But if they can get both of those guys, I think that would be my dream first round, and that would be a absolute dream scenario.
Well, and everyone keeps bringing up like Freeling, he's going to probably have to start immediately because, on the Browns, you drafted him to start immediately, but he might not be seasoned enough to be like a good tackle immediately. I'm okay with that, though. And honestly, I think, like Andrew Berry admitted, I actually asked him the question about, do you notice what other people talk about on tape from guys coming out of college, that whether it's like the schemes they play, the transfer portal, whatever, that guys just maybe aren't quite as ready for the NFL along the offensive line that they maybe used to be. And he admitted, like, yeah, we see that. And he said, it's not universal for everybody. Sometimes guys are ready, but like, I think they're comfortable understanding, like, it might take a couple years for one of these guys to turn into that elite tackle, and they're okay with that. So I'm fine with Monroe Freeling.
And Spence, in that specific scenario, a lot of the pressure falls off of him to be that great, because if they take him at 6 and they pass up on several of the other guys, just naming Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, I'm just naming the Buckeyes, right? Carnell Tate, any of them, they pass on those guys. He has to hit. He's got to be it. But if you take another one of those and get him later in the round, you're like, okay, that takes a little bit of pressure off of him, and he can like at least settle into, hey, some mistakes are going to happen, sure. But he can at least settle in and not have that pressure of, hey, we took you ahead of all these other guys, and you got to be Joe Thomas.
Yeah, that's a very fair point for sure. And to be honest, like, I'd be comfortable with Freeling at 6 because I think he's good enough. Like, I think he's good enough, and if that's what the pick was, fine. But I do think there's a lot of people that are going to think that's a little too rich to take him, and that's why, honestly, like, my dream draft scenario for the Browns starts with a trade back out of 6, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm not saying that, like, I like Carnell Tate too, honestly, and that's funny. Actually, I was going to bring this up. I saw somebody on Twitter asked, like, if somebody told you were guaranteed that Carnell Tate would have Terry McLaurin's first, like, whatever, how many years he's been in the league, like the first 7 years he's been in the league. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 7 years he's been in the league. Would you take him in the top 10? And people were like, yes. And if you think about it, like, Terry McLaurin's had, up until this past year, he had 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Yeah. He had 13 touchdowns in 2024. Like, he was balling. So I think if you were guaranteed that, I would say, like, yeah, for sure, like, sign me up. The Browns have had one wide receiver that's
Yeah.
Going back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and that was Amari Cooper. Like, it's just a very
And that was fun, man.
yeah, it
That
was.
fun.
So listen, and I really do like Carnell Tate. For me, it just comes down to what you mentioned. The wide receiver room or class is a lot deeper than the tackle class.
Yeah.
And so I'm all about accumulating as many more future picks as possible. Trading down to like the early teens. I'm looking at the Cowboys. I'm looking at maybe the Dolphins. I'm looking at maybe the Rams. If they're like, we're a piece away, let's go get Arvell Reese or something. And they want to trade up because they tend to be aggressive and give up their picks.
Picks.
I'm good with getting to like 13. And then that's where I would take Monroe Freeling, where you feel like the value is probably a little bit better. And then I think at 24 for my dream draft scenario, I'm taking Omar Cooper Jr. And then I'll throw in one more for you at 39. I really love D'Angelo Pons, man. Maybe it's just Indiana guys. I don't know. But D'Angelo Pons as your nickel corner, he's a little undersized, but like, dude, like he fills out a spot that I think is actually a more pressing need than we realize for the Browns, that nickel spot, whether it's a safety, whether it's a corner. And I think safety is a big need too, because Grant Delpit's on the last year of his deal and Ronnie Hickman technically isn't signed yet. I'm fascinated to see how they handle that. But that I think is if I'm thinking about where this goes, trade back, get Monroe Freeling, get Omar Cooper Jr., D'Angelo Pons in the second round. And I'm like walking out of the facility in Berea, ecstatic about the team I get to cover next year.
Let's go. Yeah, that'd be pretty damn good if that comes true. Pons is interesting. This dude, the Omar Cooper things, he's a good player. He's a really good player. He is tough. I mean, all those guys.
And I don't think, like, initially, I think he was kind of projected as a second rounder, but now I think he's going to the first.
Yeah. He's climbed. You nailed that right at the combine too. You said the conversation around him was getting pretty loud, and yeah, dude, that'd be a heck of a. And in that scenario, you're probably getting another one at some point, whether it's it's next year, because the Cowboys have 2 1s in the first round too. They have 12 and 20. You could go and I don't know. They're probably not giving up both of them for pick 6, but like maybe you get a second or another first. And you'd be pretty excited about that.
I'm intrigued about the possibility of trading back. We'll see what that looks like. And if someone's want to go with 2027 first in particular, that'd be the ideal scenario, but we'll see what kind of that looks like. But yeah, man, you bring up Carnell Tate. Browns had a pretty strong contingent of people. Catherine Hickman was there. Glenn Cook was there. Part of it, I'm sure, is like Columbus isn't far, so it's easy to get there for them. But I mean, we know what the top of this board looks like. There's like 4 guys that could go in the top 6, theoretically. So I think like it makes sense that they were there sort of scouting those guys because they're in position to maybe draft one of them. And hey, I'll throw a little fuel on the fire from our earlier conversation. If they're looking to trade Myles Garrett, hey, maybe Arvell Reese all of a sudden doesn't look too shabby at 6.
We can't do more defense, man. We just simply can't. We cannot.
If they're gonna if they know they're trading Myles Garrett, they can.
Oh no!
Can you imagine? They're like, we know we're trading Myles June 2nd.
I'm going to be playing wide receiver for the Browns if they keep doing this shit. They're going to have no wide receivers if they don't keep doing. I mean, it'd be tough. The interesting part. Okay. The one interesting thought I had about them being at that pro day was Trotter. Jake Trotter was the clip that was going around yesterday from ESPN Cleveland. But what he said was there's going to be a strong contingent down there to watch all of the Buckeyes. Okay. Obviously, they're going to be watching all of the Buckeyes. But for whatever reason, that like has stuck out and like rung in my head of like, yes, they're watching those guys who are going to be those top 10 picks. But there's also 9 other players that Ohio State's going to have in the draft, including Davis Igbenogson, who could be, you talk about a cornerback.
Max Clare.
Right, Max Clare, Will Kazmarek, Lorenzo Styles Jr. Lorenzo didn't work out. He was in a sling today. Not great for 4.27 40, but don't love him being in a sling. But like all of the other guys that, hey, could be second rounder, could be third rounder. You could get Will Kazmarek in the 5th round and become your, left tackle extended in run plays. Like that dude's a road grader, man. And it's like, all right, there's a lot of other great talent that I think the Browns are going to have their eye on because they've never been afraid of drafting and picking up Ohio State guys, and certainly aren't going to start to get gun shy now.
Yeah, when you have as many guys that are draft eligible and likely to get drafted as Ohio State does, it makes sense that you'd have, some representation there for sure. And I saw everybody was talking about how like nobody was at. I think Ryan Poles was the only GM at Alabama's pro day or for Ty Simpson. Yeah. But we got to remember, the Browns already hosted Ty Simpson on a private, like for a top 30 visit. So it's like I think they probably did a lot of their homework then. I don't know that I'm reading into, hey, they weren't at his pro day, so they have no interest whatsoever. I think, it kind of speaks for itself. But
it's also just very funny, like the pictures and the videos of the Woody today was like everybody. Yeah,
I'm kind of jealous. I'm kind of jealous I wasn't there, honestly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Anyway, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Great show as always. What is your dream draft scenario? If you want to give us the first 2 to 3 picks or so, or the first. Yeah, what did I do? I did the first 3. Yeah, first 3 picks.
I did 2. You did 3. Screw it. Give us all 9.
Or if you want to go all 7 rounds, go for it. Hit us up in the comment section at Browns Roundtable on YouTube. You can also hit us up on Twitter at 80megs_10 at Spencito_. Make sure you head over to brownsroundtable.com. All the latest Browns news, any columns, any opinions, any trackers we have for the offseason are up over there. So you'll want to check those out. And you can use the QR code over there by Anthony Moeglin's head to make sure you get there a little bit quicker as well. So thank you for those who watched our latest episode. Thanks for all those who support the show and the pod and the website. Always, we appreciate you. We'll have plenty more to talk about as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. What quarterback is Dan Orlovsky going to love next? Who knows? We'll talk about it if it comes to fruition on the next episode. Make sure you keep a follow along with all things Browns with Browns Roundtable.